Hello and welcome to the first episode of a brand new podcast called Beautiful Bets with Vegas Insider. My name's Andrew Beasley, and each week I'm going to be taking you through some of the best bets for the week ahead in soccer, in the Premier League, in the Bundesliga, anywhere really that we can think of. But I'm not going to be doing it on my own. I'm just a guy with a spreadsheet and a few numbers lined up, but we've also got an actual soccer man with us. We've got Eric Wynalda. Over 100 caps for the USA, played at 3 World Cups, and he's going to be helping me as well. So how are you today, Eric?
I'm very well. I'm very well represented behind me. Just some old jerseys, some new jerseys, but we got some really good games to talk about this weekend. Spinning out of the international break, which is always tricky. Some of these games are on our slate are going to be fantastic watches.
Yeah, absolutely. It is difficult to know how teams are going to react after the international break when their players have been away, and obviously the managers don't have too much time to prepare. It's been a bit of a strange period as well in the Premier League because there were quite a few games cancelled for understandable reasons after the Queen died. So this will be the first full set of fixtures actually for a month. So we'll see how we sort of pick up with that after the international break. The first one I want to talk about in our first section, the weekend's best, is the North London derby, Arsenal against Tottenham. A bit of a top of the table clash, this one, with Arsenal top of the pile. It's 15 years nearly since these teams played with one of them top of the league. So they both had very good starts to the season. Arsenal are the favourites, but Spurs have only lost 2 of the last 8 meetings. I'm not sure which way this one's going to go, although I am expecting there to be quite a few goals. But what do you think? Have you got any thoughts on how this one might play out?
Well, because of the break, and you got to remember, some of the more important players on both sides were just in action with the Nations Cup. So when you go into a game like this, it's very pragmatic. I think Arteta, for me, as a manager, has really earned his stripes this year. That the team is playing different. They have a different culture. It certainly has a different feel. And we waited a long time to see an Arsenal squad of this caliber. Are they going to come out all guns blazing? Probably not. And that's hard to do against an Antonio Conte team. He invokes what's called pattern play. It's something that once you figure it out, some of these games get stagnant in a hurry. And I think Arteta is just the kind of guy who's going to figure out tactically how he's going to address that. What that means is they'll rely on the counter. And I know you want to see goals, but I don't think you're going to get them. I think we're looking at a 1-1.
Interesting. See, I think there is going to be over 2.5 goals in this game, but obviously we'll see how it plays out on Saturday. We've got another derby as well in the Premier League, the Manchester derby, City versus United. This has been an interesting fixture over recent years because City have obviously been the stronger of the two teams in the last few years, but United have won a few of the fixtures. They've defended well, looked to hit City on the counter, and sometimes they've been able to get the win. I'm not sure that's going to happen this time. Right. I'm more inclined to think that City will win fairly easily. United have looked better in their last few games after a disastrous start to the season where they lost to Brighton and Brentford. But clearly this is a very big test. Going to the Etihad, teams don't tend to have too much joy. I'm thinking it's one where you would bet both teams to score no, which you can get at plus 100. Teams visiting the Etihad, the last 10 have only averaged 5.8 shots per game, which isn't very many, obviously. So I think City will probably keep a clean sheet. But we disagreed on the last one. What are you thinking on this one?
I think this is a high-scoring affair. I really do. And I think City, it'll take a while. There'll be more or less second-half goals. But we've already seen that Maguire has ruled himself out of this, which is good news for Manchester United, that they won't have the same issues. But you've got a couple of clever players in this United side. What the reality will be is if Ten Hag decides that he wants to play that card, to really shut it down, which I think he will. I think in the first half we'll get to find out right away what they're all about. But how much does Aaronson have in the tank? How much does Bruno Fernandes have in the tank right now is a big question mark. But and of course with the inclusion of Anthony's someone that if you decide leave him up there and let him have his moments, it's just going to be a tactical decision that Ten Hag's going to have to make. In the end, I think there's just way too much quality when it comes to this City team City hasn't really started the way they want. They need goals. They're going to get them. I got this thing for maybe 3-4-1 would be the score line. You don't think that they're both going to score? There's a very good chance of that. But in my recollection, there always seems to be maybe one time that they will be able to find the back of the net. But I do see goals in this one, at least 4.
Yeah, it could play out similar to last season. This fixture actually ended 4-1 last season, and although United didn't have too many chances, they were able to score through Jadon Sancho. So, yeah, it could be a similar outcome this time around. But I think we probably both agree that Manchester City will probably win.
City does not like their position. They want to. They want to emphatically say this is always the game where it's a staple of the season for the city of Manchester. They who is gonna what color is the city going to be this month? I think it's spinning out of the international break. It actually favors City quite a bit more than it does Manchester.
Yeah, and perhaps particularly because it's on the Sunday, so they have an extra day to prepare, which is only going to help the favourite.
You're gonna have to wait for it, but it's going to be a good one. It'll be worth waiting for.
Yeah, I think so. It's not always a high scoring game, but it's rarely dull. There's normally something going on, which is good. Over in Germany, I suppose the biggest game is probably Bayern Munich versus Bayer Leverkusen, which is on Friday. Bayern clearly not having this start to the season that they would have hoped. Not won any of their last 4 league games, I believe it is. Although, if you look at the stats from the matches, they've certainly dominated those games. They just haven't put the chances away. Leverkusen haven't had a great start to the season either, I believe. They're down in 15th, which is obviously not great for a team that's in the Champions League. But what do you think might happen in this? Is this where Bayern get sort of back on track and win the game and start moving in the right direction?
Well, I mean, what I've learned over the years with Bayern is there's always going to be a blip on the screen before or after the Champions League fixtures, and it happened to be against Augsburg. This surprised a lot of people. No one thought that this was going to be a scenario where Augsburg would get anything out of their game against Bayern, but spinning out of the Champions League, where they put much bigger of an onus on the result there, they were able to get a result. I feel bad for Leverkusen. I really do. They've had some issues. Ta in the back has not really been at his best. They still get some clever moments out of Demirbay, but for the most part, this is a team that it's right in the middle of the roller coaster, and this will be one of the down points of their season. Bayern will explode, even though they did have plenty of guys participating in those fixtures. This is just where you get to see the depth of Bayern, what they mean, what it means to them to play in a game at home of this magnitude. This thing could get high. This could get 4-5-0. This could be one of the worst days in Leverkusen. I really see this one going that direction. Leverkusen hasn't showed me yet that they are resilient enough. They will, in the end, be someone that will occupy maybe this 7th, 8th, 9th position in league play. There's other teams that are certainly looking better, Hoffenheim, for example, but this is just not going to be a good day. It's not going to be a good trip. They're making a lot of storylines around how this is a great trip, and they're looking forward to playing against Bayern at home. Let me just rephrase. That's a lie. Nobody enjoys going to Bayern and going to Munich and playing in Allianz. It is a difficult trip, and this is going to be. And I think we're looking at this Leverkusen side. They've already shown that they do have some weaknesses back there. They're going to be exploited full tilt. This might be 3-0 at halftime, and there'll be some more after that.
And how do you think Sadio Mane has done? I mean, for people who don't know, I'm a Liverpool supporter, and there's been a lot of talk about whether Liverpool are missing him this season. I'm not sure if they are or not. Luis Diaz has probably been their best player, although Nunes hasn't settled yet. But obviously, Mane's come in for some criticism because he hasn't scored for a few games either. So do you think that's just a sort of settling in period and he'll sort of come good in the end? Maybe even in this game, he's plus 440 to score the first goal.
I would think that this is a big day for him. He has scored. They just keep calling it back. VAR has not been his friend through the first couple of games. So I think that's the fact that he's gotten a couple of goals is good. That making the adjustment to Germany, which I know very well, is never easy. It seems that at times the connections aren't there, where he doesn't have a perfect understanding people like Muller who are adjusting to him as well. There's still a lot of pressure in the aftermath of losing Lewandowski, and what kind of output would he be able to produce. But this is the kind of game where he gets to explode. And I do believe that with everyone coming out of the international break and some of the other guys fit again, Julian Nagelsmann is going to have them flying. That this will be a game where the message will be very clear. This is Bayern. We are Bayern. They can't walk with us today. We have to take them out, and it could get ugly.
The other big game in Germany this weekend sees Cologne take on Borussia Dortmund. Now, Dortmund will obviously perhaps think they might have a chance of winning the title in Germany because Bayern possibly having an off-season, although we do expect them to come good. But here are two teams who've done reasonably similarly, at least according to the statistics, the underlying numbers from the matches. But Dortmund have had the much better season so far. They've got 15 points from their 7 games, where Cologne only have 10 at this point. Dortmund are expected to win. They're available at plus 105, where Cologne are plus 235. I would certainly expect Dortmund to win this, but I'm no expert. So what's your opinion, Eric?
All right. So first of all, Cologne has been cheated out of points. If you go back and watch that, the hand goal that wasn't in their game against Schalke, which was also a big derby. So that game ended in a tie. So they should have had 2 there. And if you're looking at last week, 2 weeks ago against Bochum, Bochum finally got their first points, but failed to register a shot in this game. They outshot them 19-3. So Cologne should have certainly won that game. So let's pretend that they have those 4 points. These two teams are a lot closer than people think. Everything that's going on with Dortmund and just this a new manager. There's a lot of things that they've had to deal with on the injury side. Royce out. It looks like Gio Reyna is going to take a 10-day break. Because he's felt something, a strain at his hamstring. Americans are very, over protective of this guy. But the reality is Gio Reyna has not been a contributor at all this year. No goals or assists to show for, only 6 games played, and they seemingly are handling him with velvet gloves. The real story here is Anthony Modeste, who if you follow this guy's career, the Frenchman started in Bordeaux, went to Hoffenheim, kind of blew it up, and then was the king of Cologne. He did everything for them. He leaves for China, all right, to take the money, and then Cologne goes down. He comes back, and he kind of guides them back into European football, but decides at the end of last season that he's going to leave again because he wants to play Champions League football. And he goes to Dortmund, who he's playing for now, and now he's got to go back to Cologne. This is the storyline. This is going to be all that everybody talks about. It is going to certainly take the focus away from almost everybody. Baumgart, the manager of Cologne, has fueled the fire with some of his comments as well. I just don't think this Dortmund side's ready. I don't think they're ready for walking into this cauldron. When you play in Cologne, and I played there, when the team is doing well, and they've got a fiery manager, they always are the one venue you don't want to visit when you're not in form. And Dortmund is certainly not in form. They're only able to get through their last 3 or 4 games with a 1-0 victory. This thing is screaming a 1-0 victory for Cologne. And again, Dortmund having a hard time finding the back of the net. So take the under and take Cologne. The home side will get it done.
Okay, well, that's not what I was expecting. We seem to disagree on quite a few of these, but that's good. That makes it more interesting. See who's right next week when we review the tips or what have you. A few other games we can talk about quite briefly in our pitch picks section. Obviously, Leeds against Aston Villa. Another big game for, well, both clubs really. I mean, neither was played in a while. Steven Gerrard's under quite a bit of pressure at Aston Villa, although they will have eased that by beating Southampton last time out. I'm thinking in this game there's going to be a lot of cards because these teams had a lot of cards last season.
Yep.
And the referee Stuart Atwell is actually the most card-heavy referee among the regulars in the Premier League now that some of the old guard retired in the summer. So I'm expecting a fiery game.
Yep.
I'm not actually sure who's going to win. I think Leeds, but I suspect you may say something different.
No. And this one actually, and one of the things I would say about Steven Gerrard is that I think the break has served them well. I do think that in their last game, they were able to keep the opposition at bay. The defensive effort was terrific. Um, and I would say also, and if we're talking about Southampton, they're very similar in a lot of ways to the way Leeds likes to play. So this will be very interesting to see if it's one of those that could go one way or the other. If you're feeling adventurous, I would say a high scoring affair with Leeds getting the victory. But again, this one is a game where both managers, understanding the importance of points, might walk away just splitting it 1-1. But if it gets crazy, and it very well could, and the reason why it would is most of the bodies that are in Leeds, for example, with Aaronson and Adams, who are stalwarts, they're going to be tired. They're going to be tired, and there's going to have to be plenty of substitutions. And I wouldn't say backing out of tackles. You're not allowed to do that, but there will certainly be people wary of the late tackle, and that's coming. It's a great point you made about the referee being very card heavy, because once this game gets card heavy, if it gets card heavy, and we have a bunch of people sitting on yellows, and the ball gets in the box, nobody can foul. So there we'll see a lot of goals if we get to that point. I guess what I'm saying in a roundabout way is, here's what I'm hoping for, and here's what will probably happen. I'm hoping for a 3-2 Leeds, but the probability of that happening is very unlikely. Leeds has proven to do this at the end of games, and Jesse Marsch is a fiery manager as well. He will make changes, and he will go for it. And if he does go for it, he doesn't care if he loses 3-1. He cares about the 2-2. So it could get out of hand either way. But I'm hoping for a 3-2. I'm saying that we will see the over in this, and I'm just hoping that they don't both park the bus, which I don't think they will, and we get goals out of this one.
Well, if you agree with Eric, you can get plus 500 on over 4.5 goals.
There you go.
He's hoping for it.
Being adventurous, that's what I mean. It could very well be a lockup, but if somebody is able to break the bag early, this might get crazy. So I'm hoping for a good one.
Okay, another one which may not be quite so good is the Monday night game between Leicester and Nottingham Forest. We've talked about a top of the table game between Arsenal and Tottenham. This is quite the opposite. Two teams who've had poor starts to the season. Could be an interesting one. I think, or at least the statistics suggest they will be under 2.5 goals, because these are two bad attacking teams, but at the same time, they're two pretty bad defensive teams as well. Yeah. So I suppose it depends which way you think it's going to go. I'm thinking under 2.5 goals, which is available at plus 125. Do you see it that way, or are you expecting a sort of similar goal fest as there might be at Leeds?
Well, I don't think so. I think Brendan Rodgers is going to just try and get points out of this and get on the bus and go home. He really, well, not the bus, he'd probably get in his car. But in this kind of game, right, and especially with Leicester taking 5 in their last outing, they had to shore up their defensive responsibilities. And I'm certain that throughout the break, this has been a huge source of concern for Brendan Rodgers. I believe that in the past he has been able to fix things fairly quickly. Things don't linger on at Leicester the way that they might at other clubs. So this is a 2-1. I'm going to go 2-1 Leicester. It'll be a late winner, and it will be someone that we did not expect to score. But they're walking out of that stadium after it's over on Monday night. They'll have a good feeling for once, which is something that has been hard to come by for Leicester.
Yeah, absolutely. They're available at minus 125 to win, with Nottingham Forest at plus 350. So the bookmakers are obviously expecting a home win in that one, but we'll have to wait and see. As I say, I think it's going to be low on goals, but
I agree with you there. Hey, we agree.
Yeah. Which means it probably won't happen, but there we are. Nice to have a bit of agreement. Just running through a few of the other games in the Premier League just quickly. We've got Crystal Palace against Chelsea. I think both teams will score. Liverpool, Brighton, I think that's going to be a close one. Southampton, Everton, I think could have goals, even though they're low-scoring teams. They've both been having quite a few chances. I'll be going for both teams to score in the Fulham, Newcastle. A draw in West Ham against Wolves, because they're the joint lowest-scoring teams in the division, so I don't think there'll be much in that one.
Right.
And finally, Bournemouth, Brentford. I think Brentford will win. I'll probably be saying I think Brentford will win a lot this season, particularly when they're playing sort of similar teams, because I think they're they're a good side, and they don't always get the results that their sort of stats deserve a little bit. But yeah, I think the most interesting games are the derbies, but there's a few others in there that could be worth a look. Is there sort of anything you've picked out particularly?
A lot of duds in there. I mean, you nailed it with Wolves. I mean, it's so pragmatic, and it's in watching them try to score has really been difficult. It's a difficult watch. Jimenez doesn't help being out of the equation, and they've struggled without him. But I got that one 0-0. I hate predicting a 0-0, but I just can't see anybody figuring out how to score in that game. So um, if you're into donuts, that's your game.
Yeah, I think if you had to pick one this week for the 0-0, that would absolutely be it. Whether that will be a weekly thing we look for, but that certainly looks like it will
We'll
be
call that the donut game.
this week.
Where's the donuts
Yes,
in this deal? And
but
this it'll be Wolves for sure.
bagel of the week, absolutely right. So we've looked at some of the games this week in England and Germany, and we're also going to look at sort of the bigger picture, not just individual games. Obviously, we're starting this podcast up because before we know it, the World Cup will be here. England and USA have been drawn in the same group, so obviously myself and Eric will need to talk about that over the next few weeks before they play each other. Neither team is in really great form at the moment. Obviously, England played well for about a quarter of an hour against Germany, but other than that, they've not done too well since the end of last season. Been relegated from their Nations League group, and then obviously with the USA, they lost to Japan. I believe they didn't have a shot on target in that game, and then they drew 0-0 with Saudi Arabia. Only a couple of shots on target in that game. So obviously, there's some concerns over their attack. There's some concerns for England. I think there's Wales have lost both of their games this week. They're also in Group B with those teams. If of the teams in the group, I think Iran probably had the best week because they beat Uruguay 1-0 and got a draw with Senegal. But obviously they are the outsiders in the group. We're mainly going to be focusing on the USA and England, understandably. So obviously just be interested in getting your thoughts on some of the things. I mean, former New England Revolution star Brian Dunseth has said that Christian Pulisic is overhyped and overrated in recent comments on his podcast. Do you think that's fair, based on both the recent games or anything sort of going further back? And do you think maybe he needs to move away from Chelsea to make a fresh start? It felt like he had possibly fallen out with Thomas Tuchel. Obviously, they've got a new manager now. But what's your sort of take on Pulisic and how he's looking ahead of the World Cup?
Well, he's got a new lease on life for sure with Tuchel being gone. That storyline, it goes all the way back to that shirt behind me in Dortmund. When Tuchel was the manager underneath Klopp, in fact, he was one of the youth coaches, and he got in a fight with Christian Pulisic, and they've just never been able to bury the hatchet. So they haven't liked each other ever. And that was probably the main source of why he was always out of selection. Mason Mount was getting more time, certainly, than he was. And a lot of questions about whether or not he was going to be able to perform. Injuries don't help, but I get Dunseth's point. I know Brian Dunseth really well, and we are both of us are very keen on this situation because we know Christian really well. But um, I don't think it's fair to say he's overhyped. He didn't do the overhyping. It wasn't his doing, but the kid did win a Champions League. I mean, we have an American player that wins the Champions League trophy, and we should have the right to celebrate that. So whether he was a sub, he was a part of that team, he was an integral part of that team. So the hype is warranted. Let's start with that. I do think this new late lease on life that he will have with a new manager, and Potter is certainly someone that we don't know what we're going to get, but it's always going to be the case that when you find yourself in a position where it hasn't been going well, the team isn't performing, you're not happy, they make a managerial change, it's a blank slate. It just start over. That game, the first game against Japan, he pulled himself out of it simply because I think he's being very wary of his body, and he wants to make sure that he's available for club and country. I don't think anybody thinks that he's not going to make the U.S. team. I think that he wants to get back to his club. He wants to keep himself healthy. He certainly didn't want to get on the plane and go back to London limping. So I thought he was really smart in this window. about taking care of himself and being ready, rested and ready, not rested completely, but ready to attack his job, his real job, the people that are paying him. So I don't know. I'm not going to say he's overhyped. I think that the true proof will be is how he handles the next month. Does he get into the squad? Does he find the back of the net? Does he provide some assists and have some joy? We'll see. But it's a very interesting time because he certainly doesn't want to get hurt again. But the World Cup looming, and it's a very integral part of the season for Chelsea to get back on track. So something certainly to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's rumours that Leeds are interested in signing him, which would obviously see him working
Who
with,
isn't
with Jesse
interested in it right
Marsch.
now? I'm hearing everybody.
Well, yeah, Leeds are rumoured, maybe Juventus. I mean, there's sort of American connections at both clubs. I mean, do you think he would work well in a Jesse Marsch team?
Jesse Marsch team, yes. If you want to go to Juventus, just plan on being hurt for a while. I don't. Nobody goes to Italy that has that kid's kind of game. I've got a shirt up somewhere in back there with Dybala, which I wish he would get out of Italy, and because it's just a car crash waiting to happen. Leeds would be a great place for him to find his feet again, and he certainly would have the backing of his manager, but there's the other realities of that are what happens if they go on a poor run, Leeds reacts and they get rid of Jesse Marsch. Now what do we do? So I'd like to see that trio with Aaronson, Adamson, and Pulisic on the same squad. That would be fantastic. But let's think this through, okay? Leeds, we all know as people who've been following the sport for a couple of decades what they've been through. And to see them back at top flight football is fantastic. But this is still Chelsea Football Club. Okay, this is still shirts. There's a business behind this. There's a lot of things to consider, and they're having their own turmoil with a new owner that thinks an all-star game is a good idea. Don't do that. But we'll see. We'll see how the next month plays out. I don't think anything's happened until January after the World Cup anyway. But he's got to focus on his football, meaning Christian Pulisic, do the business for Chelsea, and then we'll see where it takes him.
Yeah, you mentioned Aaronson and Adams there, and they've started life at Leeds pretty well. I mean, are you surprised they settled in so well, or were you expecting it? I mean, they certainly look like they're doing well so far.
Now we go back to that Chelsea game, the 3-0 victory with Mendy with the spill to Aaronson, and the no-look goal. By the way, go back and watch the video. An American kid did a no-look. He looked the other way and put it in. A little cocky, but we'll let him have it. When you win a game like that, 3-0, it's go ahead, celebrate. I am surprised with Aaronson. I really am. That's a big jump coming from Salzburg. That's a big price tag, 30 million as well. I wouldn't have anticipated that kind of a price tag for him just yet. He's now valued around 33, so his value has gone up since his arrival. Adams was always going to fit into that system. He was always going to be able to understand the messaging from his manager that we're going to press. If you've been an American who's been paying attention to the metrics of all of this, and we include science and a lot of things we do, Tyler Adams is blown everybody off the charts. There's nobody even close to miles covered, to races won, to how many touches that he has on the ball, tackles that he's engaged in. Whether he's won them all is a different story. But this kid doesn't stop moving. He doesn't stop running. There's nothing like him. I haven't seen anything like this in a long time. And it's the reason why he wears the captain's band every once in a while for the U.S. So I'm not surprised with Tyler Adams. I'm very surprised with Aaronson. But if you watch him, he's just a dog chasing a bone, man. He just doesn't stop either. And he's just kind of hanging on hope that something good will happen. And thus far, he's had some good moments. So I hope it continues.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's probably helped Leeds atop of the Premier League for the number of pressures they put in, 150 every game. I think they probably had similar figures under Marcelo Bielsa before Jesse Marsch as well. It's always been a sort of hallmark of Leeds since they came up, but possibly got the balance a bit better now. I'm not sure, but how far do you think they can go under Jesse Marsch? Because obviously it'll be very difficult to break the top six, but can they be contesting for sort of the Europa League places or something like that in the top half of the table?
I don't know what their goals are, or what they would consider, or their expectations, I should say, of what a successful season is. I see them. I see some mid-table. They might flirt a bit with the relegation. They might have a couple of results that don't go their way, and they might find themselves looking down more than they're looking up, which can happen. But I would say this about Jesse Marsch: he handles adversity extremely well. He's all about the group. He gets those guys on board with the idea that we can do anything as long as we put our mind to it. He is, as I said before, a fiery manager. You'll see him jumping on the sidelines, and his players have responded to it. And the best part is he still hasn't adopted an accent. I'm really proud of him because we watched Brad Friedel fall apart. We were talking to Brad. He says, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Well, where are you from? You're from Ohio. What is that?" So I'm waiting for that moment where maybe there's a blip where the Milwaukee kid slips into some accent from Middlesbrough, but it hasn't happened yet. So we'll have to be on the watch for that.
Yeah, hang on to that while he's still got it. Yeah. So looking ahead to the World Cup, it's now more than a year since the US national team won an away match, and they haven't scored in 6 of their 12 games this year. I mean, how concerned do you think fans should be ahead of the World Cup coming up now, less than 2 months?
Well, there's a lot of criticism that Greg Berhalter has found himself, and some of the things in his press conferences, in offering a solution. He said, "We've seen clarity." They asked, "In what?" He said, "Things." He didn't really. There's really nothing that came out of him that gave us any hope. And coming up with 2 games where they were really having difficulty creating chances was another thing to worry about. Look, Jordan Pefok is just spent the last couple of years in Swiss football. He scored over 40 goals in those 2 years, and he's been left out of this team. He is currently leading his team, Union Berlin, which is top of the table in the Bundesliga, with 4 goals already. Now, if you explain that to any novice, anybody in the world, you just say, "Wow, US, we can't score. Why can't we score?" I said, "Well, we have a guy that's leading the Bundesliga, and his team is ahead of Bayern, and he isn't on the team." Nobody, whether you know a lot about football or not, will be able to explain that one away, including Greg Berhalter. If you go back to last September, we're only talking 30 minutes of playing time that Pefok has got with this squad. But if you ask me, as an analyst and someone who's played international football, in the first game against Japan, when Serginho Dest got down the right side, provided a pretty good service, and our 5'9" Jesus Ferreira couldn't put it away, that could have been a moment for a Jordan Pefok. And we wouldn't even be having this conversation if our manager would have had the right selection for that particular game. So it's a wait and see. I am concerned. I do want to see Jordan Pefok. There's no way that he's not on the plane at the time. If he's not, then I give up. I don't know anything about football. If this manager decides to keep him off of the plane, we need him. We need a goal scorer, and it's been really the reason why we came out of this particular window. 2 games with 2 games where we don't score at all and don't really have a viable chance to even talk about. So. Frustrating to watch, frustrating, I'm sure, to be a part of, hoping they'll fix it by the time we get to November 9th when they make all these selections.
Okay. So you're not giving up hope just yet then?
Not just yet. But look at it this way. We're playing Japan and Saudi Arabia and losing and tying. Wales is playing the Netherlands, Poland, and Belgium. So when we're talking about preparation, whether they lost or not, they did get that June 1-1. I think Ramsey factored in on that one, but against Belgium, which is the best team in the world, in fact, and they're only losing by 1 game. Yeah, we have something to worry about. Gareth Bale is a guy that can turn a game on its head, and we've also got to be ready for that. But they've also proven to be difficult to score on. The best teams in the world are having a hard time scoring on them. So, we got our work cut out for it. We haven't talked about England yet. I think England. And I talked to one of the reporters out there, Simon Peach, yesterday, and his point was, I said, "What are your expectations?" He says, "Unbeaten." Next question. So we don't have that kind of mentality, but the English still believe that regardless of their form in the last 6 games, and when it comes to World Cup, they're going to be ready, and we better be ready for it.
I'm not sure as confident as he is, but obviously we'll see. We'll continue talking about it, see which players are in and out of form as we get closer to the tournament. But that should just about wrap us up for episode 1. So I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking with us. And we'll be back next week with some more picks for Premier League, Bundesliga, and anything else that catches our eye.
Have fun out there.